Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with something that still exists. Oh my God. It always amazes me when that happens. I thought it was out of print, but it isn't. Here it is. It's the complete Prokofiev piano sonatas and other piano music played by Matti Raekallio. I say that right? Matti Raekallio, something like that. Raekallio. He's Finnish. I can't pronounce it. I don't care. He's fabulous. He's a great pianist. And this is on the Ondine label. Now, Raekallio has made some recordings of, for example, Finnish music and things like that. Unusual repertoire. He hasn't done like a Beethoven concerto cycle yet. I wish he would. He's a splendid artist. And these Ondine recordings of the Prokofiev piano sonatas were some of that label's earliest releases. They really were. And, you know, nobody knew what an Ondine, I mean, we knew what an Ondine was. It was like from, Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit. But it was also a label, a record label from Finland, run by Raekallio. Wonderful guy. Hi, Rayo. Anyway, I think Rayo retired. I heard something about that. In any case, it's a tremendous label. They did glorious work. They still do glorious work. And one of their first artists was Raekallio, and he did all the Prokofiev piano sonatas. And, it's tough repertoire. Why is it tough repertoire? Well, it's tough repertoire because it was the province, particularly, when was this done? 1980 something, right? 90 something, 1988 is when they started here. Really the province of Russian pianists specifically, and Sviatoslav Richter more than anybody else, although he never did a whole cycle. And the competition was tough. I mean, there was Vladimir Ashkenazy. It was very good. It's a little bit specialist repertoire, even for pianists, because they're tough works. Prokofiev identified his own personal style very clearly. He said there is the toccata style, and then there's the romantic lyrical style, and then there's the sarcastic, sardonic, style. And these sonatas, I have more of the, shall we say, toccata and sardonic than they do of the romantic lyrical. Even their lyricism is quite acerbic, as often as not. I mean, they're beautiful works, don't get me wrong. But also, when you're working with the piano, remember, it's an instrument where the entire keyboard is on the same plane of tone. What does that mean? What it means is that, I don't know, if you listen to piano transcriptions of some orchestral works, you often find that on a piano they sound far more dissonant than they do in the orchestra. That's because in the orchestra you have layers, and some are more prominent than others. And this disparity between levels of dissonance can make even extraordinarily dissonant music sound actually quite approachable and nice, depending on what comes to the surface. All of that's much, much less obvious on a piano. So Prokofiev's idiom, much of which is very, very harmonically interesting, I think he's really a much more interesting composer than people give him credit for, sounds especially modern, I would say, on the piano. It just does. And so these piano sonatas have never been as popular as, some of the other great romantic piano sonatas, for example, even though they deserve to be, because they're some of Prokofiev's greatest works. And and there's also other stuff on here too, but let's just whip through them very quickly so you could just see what I mean, because also these sonatas, and there are 9 of them, are in a wonderful variegated range of forms and things like that. So they're all different in size and shape. It's wonderful. Piano Sonata number 1 is a single movement virtuoso showpiece, 7 minutes and 52 seconds here. Number 2 is a big symphonic 4-movement sucker. It's not that big. It's less than 20 minutes long, but it's in 4 movements. Number 3 is another 1-movement spectacular, and it's quite popular. It may be the most popular of all of them, and it only takes about 8 minutes. And then we've got number 4, which has 3 movements. And number 5, the original version of number 5 here, by the way, not the revision, we get 3 movements. And then the 3 war sonatas, 6, 7, and 8, from the period around World War II. These are the ones that, Richter sort of owned. And they are extraordinary. They run everywhere from 4 movements to 3 movements. with that fabulous finale of the Seventh Sonata, the Precipitato, precipitously, which Raekallio makes a meal of. He's precipitato, but he's not ridiculoso. I mean, it's not so fast that it's all a blur, but we'll get to that in a minute. And we get number 9, which is 4 movements. Now, these are a wonderful variety of works that show a real progression in Prokofiev's compositional idiom. I really do wish they were more popular than they are, and that's what makes little box sets like this so wonderful, frankly. And you also get, in addition to that, the Etudes Opus 2, the famous toccata, played with blistering virtuosity, the sarcasms, which are lots of fun, the vision fugitive, all of them, not just like, little pieces of them, and the Tales of an Old Grandmother, Romeo and Juliet, 10 pieces. I love the Romeo and Juliet transcriptions. They're just absolutely marvelous. It's wonderful here. I have it on my iPod. Not my iPod now, it's my iPhone. They don't have pods, they have phones. And I play them all the time. I just love them. They're wonderful if you're traveling or out walking or whatever. So, what is it about Raekallio that makes him so wonderful? Well, first of all, he has all of that steel that the music needs, the banging and crashing. But he doesn't bang and he doesn't crash. It's chiseled playing. In that Precipitato, for example, or in the outer movements of the War Sonatas, he really just nails the rhythm and the articulation, but without banging, without sounding crude or just, wantonly violent. And he also, though, has a very fine sense for the Prokofiev's lyricism in the slow movements. There's some beautiful moments in all of these sonatas. I really like the original version of the 5th Sonata, for example, in this performance, and in the 9th Sonata, where he just encompasses all 4 movements very, very effectively, and without any kind of a sense of dead spots or wandering or meandering, which some people sort of seem to have an issue with. And the smaller pieces are splendidly done, and the recording, the sonics are important too, because they're just a touch dry, maybe a little hard even, but they suit the music. They really do. They allow Raekallio to articulate and phrase and achieve a legato without letting the acoustic do it for him. It's not all swampiness. And that's also very important in this music particularly, because clarity is critically important. And so if you're looking for a Prokofiev sonata cycle, my colleague Jed Disler also has very, very high regard for this cycle. I think rightly so. It's one of his reference cycles, along with Anne-Marie McDermott and Yefim Bronfman and a couple other people like that. And so this is absolutely tremendous. And I recommend it hugely because it's still around and it's on Ondine. Go for it. Thank you for joining me, friends. Keep on listening and take care.